Hello everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. I'll be hosting the show today. Up first, not a lot going on the hazardous weather graphic for advisories, watches, and warnings. All that's left is this winter weather advisory here, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, that's currently out and due to end at 9 p.m. this evening. Until then, winds still gust up to 40 miles an hour, creating blowing snow. Creating visibilities reduced to half mile or less at times and blowing snow. But that'll be improving, and again, that should end by 9 p.m. this evening. And for the satellite imagery, weakening front here, pushing into an area of high pressure, came rolling across the Bering Sea and then just kind of like hit some kind of wall here in the west. This portion really washing out down to the south. A little bit of moisture up to the northwest there in that part of the front, but really it's in place, stalled out, and dissipating, becoming weaker by the hour, and some pretty good clearing behind that here over the eastern Bering from roughly Norton Sound all the way down the southwest coast. A little bit more expansive area there from roughly near the Pribilofs into Bristol Bay, and then back into the clouds here for the eastern Aleutians, and the next system out there, another low pressure area off to the southwest with clouds, mixed rain and snow in across the western, the central Aleutian areas, and a little colder and more snow showery up over the northwest Bering. And here in the central and eastern interior, pretty good day, just some variable clouds actually with this over in the Kuskokwim Valley, and some clouds up here over the interior as you get up there around the Tanana Valley on up to the north. And the Arctic coast, generally in that windy pattern there with the areas of blowing snow on the east side, and less wind back here to the west, more or less, and then a band, kind of a occluded front, or it is an occluded front here across the Panhandle, that bringing rain, mostly areas of rain to snow. Petersburg reporting some snow, and then kind of a mixed condition over towards Stewart and Hyder there throughout the afternoon, but clearing up to the north there toward the Elfin Cove, Juneau, Skagway, and Haines area. Not too bad, pretty nice day along the North Gulf Coast and into the Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound. Light winds and dry conditions with some sunshine breaking out. And rolling this through, you can see this front actually kind of edging its way southward there. The main low well to the south of Queen Charlotte Islands is actually off the Oregon-Washington coast and not coming northward at all. And this band will continue to move southward and dissipate as this front will continue to drift eastward and continue to wash out throughout the night tonight and into tomorrow. Well, out to the west, this system will try to push through the area of high pressure, but most of this should slide off to the east and southeast, and this portion out here should shift on up to the northwest. On the chart today, here's the remnants of that frontal boundary that came. It was a lot stronger yesterday, especially yesterday morning out in the eastern Bering. Quite weak now, just some areas of light snow from western Alaska range on up to the northwest there to the northwest coast. A little breezy up through the Chukchi Sea. Winds gusting as high as 40 miles an hour, 30 to 40 miles an hour today with some blowing snow and snow falling in the St. Lawrence Island area. And then the gusty winds on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast creating the blowing snow there. But light winds, clearing skies here over the southeast Bering, Alaska Peninsula. And the warm front with that next low spreading a little bit warmer conditions in, well, definitely warmer with the southwest winds there with rain and snow. Mostly rain this afternoon at sea level there. Higher elevation seeing a little bit of snow. Otherwise, mountains not all that heavy. And here's the front there affecting the southeast coast, the southern portion of the southeast coast with the rain and snow. Some areas just seeing some wet snow. And then that cutting off, dry and clearing up there to the north. Nice day, Gulf of Alaska, actually all the way up to the North Gulf Coast here, up into south central Alaska. Start picking up the clouds along the Alaska Range and a few breaks up there in the central interior, then some more cloudiness all the way up, and especially back here to the northwest. And for tonight, weak low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, really not producing much in the way of any weather at all. except some scattered showers there in its southern quadrant, and the northwest flow behind that on the western side of that system in advance of the weak surface ridge. That should result in some clearing skies for Kodiak Island, definitely dry conditions there. But there will be a few clouds with the weak trailing edge of that trough here, and then snow showers, still a possibility, light scattered snow showers here from the Alaska Range up across the northern Kuskokwim Valley. Could get a little more extensive, but still quite light up there to the northwest. Out to the coast there would be some clouds. Lingering clouds here, central Brooks Range. Mostly clear skies over the eastern interior, though, tonight, with maybe a little bit of a breeze there around the Delta area with that little bit tighter gradient there. Lynn Canal, maybe a little breezy with north winds. Otherwise, the Panhandle looking pretty light wind-wise and really light precipitation-wise as that moisture slides off to the southeast there and still lingers with a chance of some moisture, light showers there over the extreme southern areas. They'll be almost all out over Dixon Entrance or all off into Canada by tomorrow morning, and these showers stay mostly off the coast there, the very weak trough. Out to the west, system actually pushes northward of the Aleutian Range after midnight tonight with the front advancing eastward here, so rain and warmer air spreading up to the Pribilof Islands, eastward to the Fox Islands, and eventually in across Alaska Peninsula toward morning to possibly as far east as Cold Bay, definitely for the Falls Pass area and the Unalaska zone, but dry and variably cloudy here. Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula with light winds. Southerlies here carrying some shower activity, initially starting out as snow, but temperatures will be on the rise with those southerly winds. And then for tomorrow, Saturday, first day of the weekend, low pressure here comes up into the Bering Sea. Southeast winds, areas of snow, again, probably the mixed line shifting a little farther north than what I've got drawn here in the afternoon. Could be right up to the Nunivak Island area in the Pribilofs. Could be into the rain by tomorrow afternoon. Colder air coming in behind that from the northwest, so scattering out to just some snow showers, but the bulk of the moisture will be off to the east here, so it'll be cooler, but not too bad out to the west. Pretty breezy, though, here over the eastern Bering Sea and the southwest coast. Right along the coast from the Alaska Peninsula, pretty good winds, 25, gusts 40, maybe up to 45 miles an hour, but that'll mostly be offshore from roughly St. Paul, St. George, on up to possibly St. Lawrence Island. And still a little breezy out of the east, but not too bad for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Beautiful day coming up tomorrow for the eastern and central interior, right from Bristol Bay, Kodiak, up along the North Gulf Coast. And this system keeping most of the moisture off the coast here of the Panhandle, while most of this will be off into Canada. So you're looking at a partly to mostly kind of day with a risk of there as far as light showers go, but it'll be generally dry, light winds, and variably cloudy to mostly sunny actually up in the north. And then the outlook for Sunday is mostly sunny skies all the way down to Dixon Entrance with probably no clouds at all up to the north. Very good conditions up over the northern interior, on down to the east, but this system swinging eastward here, wave develops on that front and drives eastward with increasing southeast flow. So look for the rain and moisture and increase and spread northward into the Prince William Sound area, western Prince William Sound, with rain and snow over the southwest and areas of snow, at least starting out as snow, extending back across the northern Bering Sea with showers and gusty northwest winds following in behind this trough as it swings eastward over toward the Fox Islands. Lows for tonight anywhere from 5 to 15 below over the eastern interior here, right up to the Arctic coast, and then above zero there by the time you get to Point Lay, and in the otherwise the teens over the northwest, 20s on the southwest coast to lower to mid 30s for the Aleutians, and the Panhandle 20s to lower 30s. Highs tomorrow, upper 30s to mid 40s there. And south central Alaska, 30s to near 40 with right around freezing for the Tanana Valley. And coming up a little above zero for much of the Arctic coast, lower 30s here in the southwest and lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. Sunday morning lows, 10 to 15 below, eastern North Slope and Arctic coast to maybe 10 below over toward the border, right around zero here to the central interior. South of the mountains, though, mostly in the teens, 20s, Kenai Peninsula, and 20s for the Panhandle. Highs into the lower 40s for the southeast coast, the Alaska Peninsula, low below zero on the North Slope.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First aviation graphic showing a lot of IFR up here in North Slope, Central Coast eastward there to Mackenzie River Delta and Bay, and also here for the Bering Strait, down to St. Lawrence Island, all the way down along and inland here, the Yukon Delta, to a lesser extent the Kuskokwim Delta, actually right into the bay, and then marginal VFR down across the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, with the IFR here over the central Aleutians, and some IFR along the Aleutian Range, east side, or I'm sorry, west side to the east, VFR all the way up across the eastern interior, most of the southeast coast. And then for the afternoon, patch of marginal VFR there over towards Stewart and Hyder. Otherwise, pretty good until you get to about Yakutat to roughly Cordova, up into the Coast Range, marginal VFR. VFR here, southern Alaska, on out to just near Iliamna Lake on the west side there. IFR along the southwest coast of the Bering Strait, or just south of there, with marginal VFR up to the northwest valleys. VFR here for the north slope, northeast interior, and marginal out west. For the Sunday morning outlook, that area of IFR, pretty widespread here, moving on up to the coastline or holding along the coast, kind of merging there with southeast flow, making conditions a little better on the lee side of the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, just marginal VFR right up, spreading to southwest Kodiak Island. Mostly VFR here over southern and southeast Alaska, over the interior areas with some marginal VFR right through there, and hit and miss marginal conditions mostly here toward the Seward Peninsula and over the North Slope, but the Panhandle looks really good. And for the afternoon, marginal VFR on the increase here over the southern southeast coast, holding VFR to the north, and also increasing moisture here coming up along the south side of the Kenai Peninsula into western Prince William Sound, and along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range on down to the Aleutian Range, Kodiak Island in the thick of it for the afternoon Sunday, and also here the southwest coast, and that penetrating up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley with some IFR back up and just reaching St. Lawrence Island with marginal conditions across the remainder of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, but rainy, both rainy and windy, marginal VFR on the northwest and northern side, or actually the west side for rainy, north side for windy. And for Isabel and Mentasta, both looking good tomorrow, as is Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White, VFR. Looking at the freezing levels for early tomorrow morning, we've got it at the surface here, southwest of Nunivak Island, but well north of the Pribilofs up to St. Matthew, and across Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. This along the coast, actually, again, here, right on down, but inland there, north of Prince of Wales Island. So staying above freezing here over the southern Panhandle, 2,000 feet, well south of the area, a little closer, but still south of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, but 2,000 to 4,000 feet nudging northward, head of the next system there on those southerly winds into the central Aleutians. And for icing, moisture could be some areas of considerable moderate rime icing here in the orange shaded areas around the Alaska Peninsula, and then possibly toward the Pribilofs, otherwise lighter amounts and tapering off back to the west and southwest, and spreading northward here, mostly south to north flow there with the ridge holding over the interior. So icing threats right along the Yukon Delta coast to about the Bering Strait, icing free everywhere else. And the jet stream showing ridging holding here, one center south of the, well south of Kodiak Island, but the ridge extending northward through the central interior to another center up there over the Arctic Ocean. So strong jet across the Pacific, splits as it approaches that ridge right through here, one branch dropping well to the south, another one heading off to the north there, up and around that ridge coming back down from the north, roughly 50 to 60 knots through here. And then another branch cutting right through the ridge, trying to push remnants of that front eastward, but staying to the south. And for 9,000 feet, we've got south to north flow 25 to 45 knots here out over the Bering Sea, eastern Bering Sea to the Bering Strait, northward, northwest 25 to 40 behind the low. Light winds for the southeast coast, 15 to 25 over the interior, variable directions. Much lighter though at 3,000 feet over the interior, high pressure 10 to 15 knots. Up to 45 knots over the Bering Sea, but generally 25 to 30 from the Bering Strait northward to the western Arctic coast. And northwesterlies 25 to 30 sweeping around, becoming westerly for the central Aleutians. Turbulence, areas of moderate chop likely here, Cape Nunivak, Nunivak Island, up across St. Lawrence Island, and also over most of the central and eastern Aleutians.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, joined again by Eric Stevens of GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And Eric, thanks so much for joining us again tonight.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks, Eric. And we've been talking about the complex gathering of information from satellites, looking down on the surface of the planet, and some of those orbits around the planet work for Alaska and some of them don't. There's a lot of challenges with those. How can we get better imagery for the poles and specifically for Alaska?
Right. Well, today we're going to talk about a very interesting kind of satellite orbit that has potential to be real helpful for the high latitudes.
Okay.
Especially us here in Alaska. Canadians, Russians, Norwegians will all be interested in this. The satellites are not in orbit yet. Now the future is uncertain, but it's possible, and if this happens, it will be wonderful for Alaska. Okay. It's called the highly elliptical orbit.
Oh, that sounds
it's interesting. Yeah. And I think first, to help our discussion, we should get back to some of Kepler's laws and how do satellites work.
Sure.
Kepler's first law, an orbit of a planet around a sun or a weather satellite around the Earth is not necessarily a circle, it's an ellipse.
Okay.
And the highly elliptical orbit takes advantage of this aspect. We're going to put the Earth in one of the ellipse and then stretch one of the foci of the ellipse and then stretch that ellipse out real far to make it highly elliptical.
The foci is that bend part of the end of the ellipse. If you're going to stretch out a rubber band, that would be the center, kind of the stretchy part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then Kepler's second law says that the closer something is to the thing that it's orbiting, the faster it goes.
Okay.
We see this in the solar system, that Mercury flies around the sun real fast. Jupiter, much slower. Jupiter's further away, it's slower. Mercury's closer in, it's faster. This happens with weather satellites too. Even satellites like the International Space Station, it's pretty close to the Earth. It goes around the Earth in only 90 minutes. That thing is moving. It's only 250 miles away. So how can we take advantage of these two aspects of Kepler's laws of motion to get better weather surveillance of Alaska? And this highly elliptical orbit is going to be the approach. So we have with us today our friendly planet Earth and our simulated satellite, the lid off of this salt shaker
like
here.
Sputnik there. Yeah.
There it is. It's shiny, it's metal, it's space-worthy. And what we want to be able to do is, could you have a satellite hover over the top of the world, up over Alaska? You can't really do that. Geostationary satellites have to be over the equator. Okay. So how could we almost solve this? And this is the tricky part. Maybe should we tilt the Earth over?
Focus on the pole. That's what we're trying to accomplish here, right?
So here we have the northern side of the planet, and we're going to trace out the orbit of a satellite with this salt shaker lid here. Now imagine a highly elliptical orbit. So let's put the Earth in one of the foci of the ellipse, and we'll have an imaginary foci out here. So the satellite will not go in a circle around the Earth, but will be in this long strung out ellipse. So the satellite will go...
Kind of like a racetrack.
Yes, there you go, like a racetrack. So it's an oval elliptical shape like that. And notice now that when the satellite's over here, we've got a nice view of the northern hemisphere around. There's Alaska, Russia, Canada, Greenland, all there. So that's the ellipse aspect of an orbit, Kepler's first law. The second law saying that when you're further away as a satellite, you go slower. And this we can take real advantage of. Because the way this orbit works, when the satellite goes over Antarctica here, it's going to be close to the Earth. It's going to be moving, whoosh, goes on by. And then as it comes out here, it will slow down. This increases what is known as the dwell time. The satellite will just hang here looking for hours at Alaska and the high Arctic. And then eventually it will come around and it will accelerate and whiz around the South Pole and then come back and hang here for a while because it's further away from the planet. It goes slower. It has to. That's the laws of motion. And such like that, repeating. Now the real important way to make this work is you have to have two satellites. So that while one is whipping around the pole, you've got the other one out here. And they work as a team. You could then get a series of images of Alaska that can be almost from a constant frame of reference. And you can loop them together to make movies. You can take a picture every 10 minutes, say, of Alaska and then loop it playing it at several frames a second, you could see the clouds whiz on by. You know, the Weather Channel, weather broadcasters in the lower 48 especially can show these movie loops from the geostationary satellites. In Alaska, we've never really been able to do that very well, especially in the higher, most northern parts of the state, because those geostationary satellites are over the equator. It's not a good view. And this highly elliptical orbit whipping around the South Pole and then dwelling up here would be a way for us to get that constant frame of reference and do really good weather surveillance over the Arctic, seeing where those storms are, where they're going. Nothing quite like a movie loop of the weather in time to really illustrate what's important, what's going on.
And compared to what we have right now, we just have small windows or snapshots of what's going on with the polar orbiters. We don't have that long range view that's looking top down to give us that complete motion picture that helps us understand so much of the atmosphere at this
There's
point.
so many different kinds of satellites. Each has their advantage. Each is important, and the highly elliptical orbit satellite will also fit into that scheme. It's a nifty idea to solve an Alaskan challenge.
That's fantastic. Well, that sounds really exciting. And again, kind of a satellite dream of the future to come. Okay, very good. Thanks for joining us today, Eric. We really appreciate the information. And if you'd like to learn more about what Eric does at GINA, at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, we invite you to visit the web address that you see on your screen there. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis showing a retreat now of the ice with the southerly winds over the area that occurred today and now continue through tonight into early tomorrow. And then by tomorrow evening, and especially on Sunday, they'll become more easterly here over the northern Bering Sea, north of Nunivak Island, but still southeast pretty good through the weekend into Monday here. About Nunivak Island on down the coastline, so this would be the most susceptible area to seeing any more real significant reduction in the sea ice there here coming up in the next 3 days. And for the coastal water forecast, we've got pretty light winds going here for tomorrow for the southern southeast coast, westerlies 10 to 15 knots with seas 3 to 4 feet, and southeast becoming east, only a 15 on the north coast with 3-foot seas. Northern Link Canal, north 25, small craft advisories there. Otherwise, 10 to 15 knot variable winds over the southern inside waters north for Passage or Stevens Passage. And for Lynn Canal on Sunday, under small craft advisory level winds now with those 20 knot northerlies. North 15 for Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait northwest at 10, northeast at 10, really light winds for the south coast, and then south to southeast, only 15 for the remainder of the coastline with seas running really nice, 4 to 5 feet. And for the Prince William Sound zone tomorrow, northwest at 20, but seas holding at about 3 feet, north 15 with 3-foot seas for the North Gulf Coast. And then winds increase as you head west here, 20 knots for the western zone, and then for the Barren Islands, northwest 30 with gale force westerlies here for Kachemak Bay with 12-foot seas, north 15 for southern Cook Inlet. And for northern Cook Inlet on Sunday, those kick up to 20 knots out of the northeast and 25 knots here south of the Forelands with northeast 30 into Kachemak Bay now. Easterlies here for the Barrens and the western North Gulf Coast at 25 knots and even a little stronger for the eastern coast here at 30 knots and Prince William Sound east winds 20 knots with 3-foot seas. Kodiak Island northwest 25 higher gusts, especially early in the morning tomorrow, and west 25 Shelikof Strait. Lighter, more easterly winds at about 10 under the ridge axis there for Bristol Bay. West 20 Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Southeast 25 for the Alaska Peninsula. Seas running 7 to 8 feet. And then for Sunday, those turn southwesterly 20 to 25 knots with the small craft advisories here from Cape Sarachev up to Bristol Bay where they become easterly, and also small craft advisories from Castle Cape all the way covering all around Kodiak Island. There are 25 knot winds out of the east for Shelikof Strait, southwest 20 here for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, or I'm sorry, the Pacific side of the peninsula. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, southeasterlies 25 to 30 out of the southeast front Alaska Island, turning southerly to the west there, 30 knot southerly winds all the way over to about Adak, then turning northwest, 30 knots there, coming in for the western Aleutians to Hamchitka Island. And then for the Sunday outlook, same pattern there, 25 knots out of the northwest with 9 to 11-foot seas. Northwest now for Adak and Atka, 25 to 30 knots, turning westerly with some minimum gales here in the picture in the forecast for the Fox Islands on Sunday, all out of the west, 30 to 35 knots, seas 10 to 15 feet. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, southeasterlies here, again keeping it southeast winds at 25 knots with 7 to 8 foot seas. Same wind pattern out here, but higher seas for the Pribilofs up to 14 feet, 10 feet for St. Matthew Island. And brisk wind advisories out for St. Lawrence Island for southeast 25. Those turn easterly at 25 on Sunday. Flow again becoming more easterly through here with even south of Nunivak Island got southeast or east southeasterlies at 30 knots in the forecast, 10 foot seas. Northeast 30 St. Matthew Island. And south coming down to 15 knots, but notice those seas are holding at 13 feet for these Pribilof Islands. And up on the Beaufort Sea coast, the central and east side, east 25 knots there. Brisk wind advisories fall back to about 15 here for the west side, and then back into brisk wind advisories from Cape Beaufort down to the Bering Strait coast. And then for the Sunday outlook, we've got east winds at 15 to 20 knots here from Cape Beaufort on down to Wales. And central west coast there, east at 20. And brisk wind advisories hold, 25 knot winds there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. So those winds will diminish some this evening, but they will not end completely through the weekend. And for the outlook tonight, again, very weak remnant front position here. Just a trough, barely anything going on with it, just some scattered snow showers here from roughly the Alaska Range back to the northwest, a break, and then this system spreading warmer air, rain, and milder temperatures into the Bering Sea here with the southeast coast drying out down over the southern areas. And for the outlook for Saturday, partly to mostly cloudy here over the south, partly to mostly sunny in the north. Shower chances very minimal down south. Mostly sunny central eastern interior. Stormy conditions out over the Bering Sea with winds 25 to 50 miles per hour in gusts there from the Alaska Peninsula up to the Bering Strait. And then for Sunday, that shifts eastward here with this low center pushing to the Alaska Peninsula. That's going to turn the flow southeasterly, bring moisture northward. Kodiak Island rain spreading northward to the Kenai Peninsula in the afternoon, even western Prince William Sound, with rain and snow across the southwest interior, and dry and cool with mostly sunny skies over the northern interior, all the way down the southeast coast to Dixon Entrance, with snow showers and a little cooler temperatures spreading into the western central Aleutians. Let's look at the weather. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.